Hey everybody, welcome in. Excited to cook with you today. Welcome to Homemade. My name is Alex. I'm joined by the lovely Christina here on moderating. If you have any questions in the chat, hey Christina.
Hi everybody, welcome.
And today I am excited to cook this French Orzotto. I've been excited about this one all week. I look forward to all our recipes, I mean that, but this one especially. This is the one that all week I've been looking forward to most. It just touches so many comforting notes, and everyone in the office here I know is excited to eat this one too. Hopefully you are as well. And we have some amazing dairy products by our friends at the Dairy Farmers of America. They sent us some Parmesan and some cream and some butter here that we're incorporating into this French Orzotto. And one of the cool things about Dairy Farmers of America, you know, here at Homemade, we love supporting our farmers. We love knowing where our food comes from. And we want to support people who actually care about the practices. And so what's cool about DFA, Dairy Farmers of America, is that they support a co-op of 10,000 farmer owners. And they've also got all kinds of resources. So if you go to dfamilk.com, you can find out what some of their local products that you can find available in your area are, and also some great recipes as well, and that kind of thing. So without further ado, wanted to run you through some of the process here of what we're cooking today. First, we're gonna get some onions caramelizing. We're gonna get those going. So first I'll chop those up. We'll get those going in this pan here. And then meanwhile, we will get our orzo cooking with some beef stock. And then while that's going, we're going to shred some cheese. We're gonna talk a little bit about just the magic of orzo, what's going on with caramelizing onions and the science behind that. And then we're going to assemble both of the ingredients together, combine the onions with the orzo and the beef stock, along with some of our dairy, throw that in the broiler. It's gonna continue cooking. And then we're going to add our gruyere at the end so we get that nice kind of crispy top with the cheese. So without further ado, we can start going with this chopping of the onions. And so what I'm doing is I'm basically getting ready to julienne these. And so I'm first just prepping all of my halves. And the nice thing is, like, once you make them, you can really save them and stretch them, because such a small amount goes a really long way with the richness of the flavor to all kinds of dishes. I like even just putting them on toast and simple things like that, but incorporating them as a base for dishes like this does so much with the flavor. And so we're just gonna julienne these, which means that we're gonna slice them really about like less than 1/5 of an inch thick. And we do want to pay attention to how thick we're slicing them. And so you want to make sure that you're not slicing them too thin or too thick, and that they're uniform. The reason that we care about that is because we want them to cook at the same speed, basically. And so if there's a couple of pieces that are slightly thicker, give them extra slice. Be very careful with your fingers. But we do want to make sure that we have a pretty even slice with this julienne. And that'll really make sure that, again, we don't have some burning as we're getting smaller bits of onion that are cooking way before the larger pieces. And there are a few methods to caramelizing onions. There's not necessarily absolute one right way, but in the beginning stage, you really want to sweat the onions. What do I mean when I say sweat the onions? I mean that the vapors that are releasing from the onion, because onions have a pretty high moisture content, that's actually what's going to kind of like steam the onions from the bottom of this pot, this pan, whatever we're cooking them in. And you just want to continue stirring, stirring, stirring. And that constant stirring motion is really important to make sure that, again, we're cooking evenly, we're not getting any burnt bits. And so this is starting to get hot. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit, get some oil in there. So it's not about like medium, high heat. And with just a little bit of a splash of oil. We don't really need a whole lot of oil. We're not frying these. This is just to coat the bottom of the pan. And another method, some folks don't even put oil at the very beginning. They actually just go straight in with the onion and let the moisture content, when I was talking about sweating onions, that's a technique that I've seen in restaurants. Look at this onion trying to run away. Get back here, onion. And then stir, stir, stir. So I think that the stirring piece is important to not try and speed up the cooking process too much. But if you're an impatient person, which I'll be honest, I am sometimes, I would say that the best thing to do would be to add a little bit of water, which is a trick that I'm going to show you in just a second here. And the trick to adding that water is to help with the steaming process. So that's going to allow you to walk away for a second and not have these onions sticking to the pan by adding, say, a few tablespoons, not a lot. It's going to cook off pretty quickly, but you don't need an insane amount to do quite a bit to help you to just have a little bit more time and give you that chance to get away from your pot, not have to stir quite as much. And you're gonna wanna do this for about more than 20 minutes to fully caramelize onions, even if you're doing it efficiently. I find it always takes upwards of 20 minutes in any larger quantity. So, for the sake of time, we're gonna keep these going, and hopefully towards the end, I can kind of show you what it's looking like in those final stages. But I've also got some finished here that I can show you what the end product will look like. And then what we'll do is we will get going with our onions that are pre-cooked, and so you'll get to see fast forward time. This is what it would look like after about 25 minutes of constant stirring. Again, continuing to add water, especially in those later stages. That's really when I would focus on adding the water, is in those final, maybe like 10, 15 minutes especially. You're gonna have to worry about the sticking and the burning. This is what these beautiful onions are gonna look like in terms of the color. It's kind of like that almost olive, tan, beige complexion here. You're really gonna wanna make sure that they have quite a bit of color before you really add the garlic in the final stage. And that's really just for those final few minutes that you're gonna saute the garlic. Same thing goes with the thyme. So you're gonna wanna add that teaspoon and a half of thyme at that same moment. And again, just about a minute of sauteing with that before you add the vinegar and some additional seasoning. So we got the Worcestershire and the balsamic, which would basically just be at the very, very end in that final minute, 2 minutes max of sauteing. And why do we do this at the end? Because if you do that early, you're gonna lose a lot of those flavors. You're gonna season too early. So you wanna make sure that really punch of the vinegar doesn't get cooked off, and you get it right at that very, very end piece of the caramelizing. So you're gonna get some additional color, some additional browning once you add that liquid. But most of the browning is gonna come just from the onions naturally cooking, naturally caramelizing on their own. But you can see these are already kind of starting to change color. So they're doing their thing. And we have here 4 cups of beef stock.
Chef, we've got a lot of fans of caramelized onions in the chat.
Yeah.
Burgers definitely have a big following with caramelized onions. Lots of love for caramelized onions and sauteed mushrooms.
Ooh.
With a really good cheese, like a Boursin cheese. And then, of course, in case you missed it, the famous Seattle dog. The
Yes.
Seattle hot dog has caramelized onions, cream cheese, and is so like rich. It's amazing.
I love whoever called out the Seattle dog. Thank you for that. I've eaten more than 1 or 2 in my lifetime. Less these days. I'm trying to take care of myself, but man, I freaking love those. They're so good. And this dish especially is, for me, I love the flavors of French onion soup. And I'm not hating on French onion soup, but sometimes I just want a little something more, a little bit more bite, a little bit more texture than that soup offers. So this just hits kind of all those notes for me. The orzo is just getting up to temp. It's almost there with the boil. I'm gonna toss this orzo in. I would wait until it's fully boiling in your case, but we're gonna let it do its thing now and get up to a boil with the orzo in there as well. We're gonna wanna give it a good stir to fully incorporate it with all of that delicious onion flavor. And then this is also so that it kind of cooks evenly. We don't have kind of clumps like a mound in the middle if you were to just pour it in. So incorporating all that good onion smell. Wow, the smell of that fat from the stock is also doing amazing things with these onions. And so we've got some of this Parmesan, which is already ready to go from our friends at Dairy Farmers of America, but we will shred this Gruyere. And this is one of my favorite cheeses, like in terms of your everyday grocery store cheeses that you can find almost anywhere. This is definitely a go-to for me. I'm curious, what cheeses are people excited about in the chat? Besides this one that I know I've been using a lot in my own cooking is Cambozola cheese, which is got some like the notes of blue, but also then some like the creaminess of more like a brie situation. And so it's a little bit more approachable. That's one that I've been really excited about. But what are y'all excited about in the chat? What cheeses? Any new discoveries or staple cheeses? What's in your life? Tell me.
Oren uses Jarlsberg in their polenta.
Uses what?
Jarlsberg.
Oh, okay. I haven't used that one much, so I'll have to give it a try.
I think it's like a creamy Swiss and plays a very pivotal part in, I believe, Devil Wears Prada. So if you haven't
Sweet.
seen it. And then Miriam is just a cheese lover all around. Feta, blue cheese, smoked Gouda. I had an amazing mushroom sandwich yesterday that had fontina, like melted fontina on it. It was so good.
We've got some metaphorical cheese heads here. I don't know if there's any official cheese heads from the Midwest here, but definitely some cheese lovers, that's for sure. And this is getting up to a boil there. I see it's now bubbling up, which means that we're there. So from about this point, this is when it's really kind of about that 10-minute mark of having it cooked enough to then add our Parmesan. And then we're going to add our cream along with our butter. And we want just about a 1/4 cup of the Parmesan here. So not a whole lot. And that's going to get incorporated with this amazing butter and cream from our friends at Dairy Farmers of America. And we're going to keep stir, stir, stir. And this is another point. All right, we're starting to get a little bit of sticking. I'm seeing there's a couple little pieces that kind of are starting to want to burn. And you'll see that the acceleration of this color, it's going to really just from minute to minute start to change a lot. And if you're using like a taller Dutch oven or a pot like this, you really have to make sure to scrape the edges of the pan, of the pot, whatever you're using to cook, so that you're not getting these onions sticking to the side. Those are the ones that are going to be most at the risk of burning, actually. You'd think sometimes it's these ones in the middle, and they are, but those are the ones that you're stirring. You forget sometimes to stir the ones on the side, and then it's going to be a pain in the butt to clean, first of all, but also you're going to have little burnt tasting pieces. Nobody wants that, right? And then we will incorporate all these delicious cheeses. I now I got to sample the goods again, make sure the cheese is still fresh.
You're doing
So
the good
good.
work, chef.
It's a hard job I got here, you know? It's a hard job. But we are just going to give it a quick little stir just to make sure we don't get any sticking at the bottom. But that's kind of what I was saying about a traditional risotto. You're going to have to stir, 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 stir. This is a much easier and also budget-friendly because that arborio rice can be pretty expensive. Usually you can find it in most grocery stores, but not always. This stuff is definitely a little cheaper, so it's a more budget-friendly risotto as well. Got some of our thyme here.
Ooh, lots of good orzo recipes coming through.
Let's
Like
hear
a
'em.
shrimp zucchini orzo in the summer. And then an orzo with pumpkin puree and sage. Just like, I couldn't be hungrier than I am right now, but that's amazing.
Yum. That's a fun one. That is a super fun one. And we're just about ready to throw in our thyme, but these are about, I would say, more than 3/4 of the way through. And so we are getting to that point where we can add our thyme and our garlic. One piece of garlic. And just a small amount does so much. 1 or 2 cloves would be plenty for this amount of onions. And you can do more if you're a garlic lover. Hey, don't let me stop you. Doing good things for your health too. That was one of my grandma's tricks, was like, hey, you're doing great things for your immune system if you eat a lot of garlic. Garlic was in all of her home remedies. She used to give me these little kind of like shots with herbs and echinacea and fish oil, and I don't know, this and that, and it was absolutely freaking awful. But she was convinced that all the garlic and all the ginger was really what's going to keep you healthy. And I eat tons of freaking garlic and tons of ginger. I don't get sick a lot, so hey, maybe there's something to it. Maybe she was right. And so we're throwing in that garlic, we're throwing in that thyme, and we're just finishing up with the caramelization here. There's another minute just with that garlic and the herbs before I throw in also this red pepper. This is a good chance to add that. About a half a teaspoon. Could do none if you don't want any spice. You could do a little bit more if you do. If you're a spice lover like me and you grew up drinking hot sauce from a baby bottle. That was the kind of house I grew up in. So this is what I'm talking about when I see this little burning situation. You'll see on the edge of this pan, so we're gonna turn it down. That's gonna help us because we're almost all the way there. We don't need to keep cooking it at this high heat. And we're gonna add some more water here to show you a little bit about what I mean by this is kind of deglazing in some ways of just getting rid of those burnt ends there. And now this is a point where we'll get this going with the rest of our Parmesan here. And we're gonna incorporate that into the risotto or the orzotto, and we're gonna incorporate the cream. It's just about a quarter cup, not a whole lot. And we're gonna incorporate a couple tablespoons of butter. We're gonna stir this in. We're gonna get it into the broiler. Well, we'll let it keep cooking. It's looking like it's a lot of the way cooked. It's definitely pretty soft, but you can see how much of this liquid it's soaking up. It's gonna continue doing that in the oven as well.
It's kind of magical, like it's so creamy and thick now. And when you first poured in the orzo, I was like, is that gonna work? But
Yeah.
no, it really has firmed up to like a beautiful sauce.
It definitely has. It's thickening up. It's doing good things. And then I threw in the liquids, the remaining liquids. And this is the balsamic, the Worcestershire, and stir for just about a minute. And we're gonna get this going in the broiler. So we got this on high. We're gonna put it in the oven towards the top. And we've got this gruyere reserved here. So this is what's gonna go on in just a few minutes. But we're just about there with topping the orzotto with the gruyere. Let's check it again.
This little step of the broiler and the cheese, like it's so simple again, but turns this dish into kind of a showstopper, which I
Yeah,
love.
it does. And you can see, look at that. This is, as I'm mixing it in and getting all those ingredients incorporated, that the orzo is starting to look like it's cooked. It's starting to look a little bit creamier type situation. And I would cook it for another minute, 2 minutes max, just to kind of get a little bit of that broth cooked out. But for the sake of time, I'm gonna show you what it looks like here once we top this gruyere. Just get it broiling for another quick minute, max 2 minutes. Get that nice little crust of cheese on top. And we are just getting there with the broiling. We really want to kind of give it some nice color. And so I'm being patient here and I'm hanging out with y'all. I don't want to rush this one. Yes. Just enough. I would push it even a little bit further, but you are starting to see some of that browning that I was talking about, that bubbling up. Wow, that looks good. And this is gonna be freaking hot, so I'm gonna serve it up and let it cool a little bit so I don't give myself a 3rd-degree burn. Who wants that? Wow, let's give this a try. And you're seeing that some of this fat is kind of separating, so we can let it cool a little bit and it'll kind of create like more of that crust type situation, or just let it broil longer. It's kind of 2 options you got there. Ah, this looks freaking good. All right.
Carefully, carefully.
Oh yeah. And then, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna season this with just a little bit of pepper. And I'm a spice lover, so I would do with a little bit of red pepper if I had a little bit of here, just reserve some of the crushed red pepper. You could also like do, somebody was asking about green, besides the peas, which is the classic risotto answer. You could also do like some chopped scallions on top. That's a nice little way just to kind of give it some color, little bite. So without further ado, let's see how we did. Wow, it's amazing how much the orzo soaks up that flavor. You really don't expect it to, but it's still got a little bit of that bite. You're getting umami goodness from all of that cheese, the broth, the stock, all of that is doing really delicious things. And these onions incorporated into the dish, they kind of like just melt in your mouth. Because we cooked them down after they had already been fully caramelized, it's a melt in your mouth situation, y'all. Hopefully, this is one you incorporate into your repertoire, cook again and again. It's definitely one that I will be. I know it. And so, if our next lesson will be, is going to be coming up actually later today. It's going to be a Basque cheesecake with a cranberry caramel. Thanks everybody for joining. Looking forward to cooking with you next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.